Our sweet OP Prince the Grau has been neutered, and its place on the pedestal is being questioned. I did a video a couple of days ago looking at a few SMGs and ARs that will be good post Season 4 Reloaded update, which I'll put as a card here by the way and down in the description, but in that video I didn't break down the best options for multiplayer and Warzone separately. It was more of an overall weapon class kind of thing. Since then, I've also received some really good recommendations on assault rifles that maybe don't get the spotlight that they should, so let's explore what the best assault rifle is now for both Warzone and multiplayer, where I'll offer top suggestions for both a multiplayer and a Warzone variant for each recommended weapon. So first up is the trusty M4A1, which has pretty much been in the top tier since the beginning of the game. We all know it absolutely melts, and there's a reason that it's the pro player's gun of choice, so I'm not going to spend too much time trying to convince you of its brilliance. But I will offer two different variants of this weapon to fill the Grau hole. The multiplayer variant has these attachments: compensator muzzle, Corvus custom marksman as the barrel, commando foregrip, stippled grip tape, and the sleight of hand perk. Usually I would weigh up no stock versus sleight of hand, but the update has nerfed no stock big time, so at the moment this is my preferred class. Now on to the Warzone variant. I recommend running the monolithic suppressor, the stock M16 Grenadier as the barrel, commando foregrip, 60 round mags, and stippled grip tape. The advantage of the M4 is that it's a great all-rounder. It can kill people at pretty much any distance. It has really good damage, it has good fire rate with not the worst recoil in the world, and it can be modified to suit your playstyle without losing too much of its power. It's limited in some situations, sure, like it can get outgunned at close range by SMGs, but so can most ARs. In addition to this, its iron sights aren't the prettiest, but you can of course add a scope or just get used to it. Finally, its recoil is a little bit worse than some of the other ARs I'm going to discuss, but it's damage more than makes up for this. This weapon can rag the lobby, but it just depends how well you can consistently control that recoil. The second weapon I'm going to recommend is the M13. We all know it's a fairly solid weapon with little recoil and a good fire rate, making it very easy to use, so I had to include it here. The multiplayer attachments I recommend are Tempest Cyclone Barrel, Viper Reflex Sight, Merc Foregrip, stippled grip tape, and sleight of hand. This is a great loadout for close to mid gunfights, with a high fire rate and a very good aiming down sight speed. I've recommended the following Warzone loadout in a previous video, so some of you may already be aware of this layout, but I'll just briefly go through it again here. I run the monolithic suppressor, Tempest Marksman Barrel, Ranger Foregrip, 60 round mags, and the GI Mini Reflex. Often I try and leave the iron sights so I can use attachments elsewhere, but I feel the M13 really needs a sight on it to clearly see the enemy. You may think otherwise, if so maybe put something on the rear grip to improve its aiming down sight speed. The real limitation with the M13 that makes it way below the M4 in my estimations is that it's just too weak. The damage per bullet just isn't enough. The quick fire rate is nice and good if you miss a few shots, but when you connect, it's gonna take a long time to get them down, especially on Warzone if someone has full armor. So when you use this weapon, you really need to master when to take on the shot and when not. I would only really recommend running this weapon if you're sick of using the M4. Next up is the Kilo. Quite an underestimated weapon in my opinion. It reminds me very much of the ACR in Modern Warfare 2 in terms of its recoil and damage. It's kind of like a slightly longer range M13 since it does have a decent fire rate. My multiplayer attachments are Singard Arms 16.6 inch barrel, the GI Mini Reflex, the FSS Close Quarters stock, the Merc Foregrip, and stippled grip tape. This mashup of attachments enhances the gun's natural recoil control and steadiness, but also gives it a usefulness at closer ranges too, ensuring you can aim down sights pretty sharpish. On the Warzone version of the Kilo, I suggest running, and you guessed it, the monolithic suppressor, accompanied by Singard Arms 19.8 inch barrel, commando foregrip, 60 round mags, and a rubberized grip tape. This is set up to be better at longer distances compared to the multiplayer version, and does sacrifice some of that recoil control and steadiness for a silencer and larger magazine, but in Warzone it's just a must to remain unknown on that minimap with the ability to blast through a load of armour. Now I can't mention the Kilo without bringing up a unique aspect of it, which would be particularly useful in Warzone, and that you can attach a massive parabolics on it, which is to say round drums, so you can have 100 bullets at your disposal without reloading. Now this pair of testes does reduce mobility of course, but it can be very much useful for clutch moments. You may want to give that a run and see what you think. It ends up feeling like an LMG but without bouncing up to the sky with recoil. Now we're on to my final recommendation, which is the CR-56 AMAX, or galil if, like me, you've played too many CODs and want to refer to the beautiful past. I've brought in this recommendation on the back of some questions and recommendations from previous videos, so thanks for those comments and keep them coming everyone. I'm always interested to know what you guys think. Interestingly, this weapon actually got nerfed during the Season 4 Reloaded Update 2, reducing its damage range. But I believe it really can still be of some use. The multiplayer attachments I recommend are the XRK Zodiac S440 barrel, FSS close quarters stock, Commando foregrip, 45 round mags, and the rubberized wrap. Often I go with a standard ammo clip and put a compensator or something like that on it, but when I use this weapon it felt okay without it. If you're using it and feel you can do with some extra recoil control, I'd look to put something like a compensator on and drop the larger ammo capacity. The Warzone version has attachments on it that give it a nice overall balance, but its strengths are very much at the medium length gunfights. The attachments are monolithic suppressor, XRK Zodiac S440 barrel, Commando foregrip, 45 round mags, and the XRK stippled grip tape. I think most players who have used this weapon would say that is a fairly standard Warzone setup. The only thing I weighed up was using the Ranger foregrip instead of the Commando, which helps with vertical recoil. But I found it's pretty easy to manage this recoil already, so I went with the Commando foregrip here. But you may want to test them both out and see what you think. A final point on these variants, they're both using iron sights, like many of my weapon suggestions are, as I feel it's important to maximise the weapon's reaction to gunfights. But of course, if you find the sights hideous or too difficult to use, just put a reticle on and experiment with what you're willing to lose off the weapon. As you can tell, the big difference between multiplayer and Warzone variations are around magazine size and suppressors. You basically want the larger magazine and a monolithic suppressor, so you can still do damage to people without lighting up the minimap with your location. After that, there's just decisions to be made on how best to steady a weapon and still have a good aiming down sight speed. For the multiplayer classes, the suppressor doesn't matter so much unless you're going for a nuke or high kill streaks, but if you're going for most kills in the lobby and a win, then really you want to use 5 attachments all on your weapon, improving its recoil control, damage at range, ADS speed, giving you the best chance to win as many 1v1 gunfights as possible. So that's everything from me in this video. I hope you took something away from it. Please give the video a like if you've got a second. It really does help out the channel, and so does subscribing, which I would highly recommend doing too. Hey, I'm not biased, it would objectively enhance your life and make you a better person. See you next time!